2025 has been full of strange and scary events. These stories aren't just made up. People say they really happened. Today, you'll hear about 3 creepy stories. But these aren't just stories. They're about real people, real choices, and real danger. Let's begin. Mark Daniels wasn't always a security guard. For 15 years, he worked as a police officer in Michigan. He believed in rules and logic, but after one bad decision on the job, Mark was fired. It ruined his life. He was drowning in debt and desperate for work. That's why he took a night shift at the Oakwood Mall. The mall was empty and old. It was going to be torn down in a week. Mark thought it would be an easy job, just sitting around for a few nights. But when he arrived, he found a note on the desk. It said, "Don't look at the mannequins for too long. If you hear crying, don't go looking for it. Stay until 6 a.m. Do not leave early." Mark laughed when he read it. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. But deep down he felt uneasy. The place was too quiet. At 2 a.m., things started to get strange. The mall speakers turned on and played an old, creepy song. Mark grabbed his flashlight and checked the mannequins in the store windows. They seemed normal at first, but every time he looked away, they moved slightly. By 4 a.m., he heard crying. It sounded like a woman in pain. Mark froze. He wanted to help, but the note's second rule flashed in his mind. Don't go looking. Mark tried to stay calm, but memories of his past flooded in. As a cop, he had ignored a cry for help once. It had cost someone their life. I can't make that mistake again, he thought. At 5:55 a.m., Mark broke. His nerves were shot and his hands were shaking. He decided to leave early, but as he reached the glass doors, he froze. On the other side of the glass was his reflection. But it wasn't him. The reflection smiled, wearing a bloody janitor's uniform and holding a knife. The next morning, workers found Mark's body in the food court. He was wearing a bloody uniform, just like the reflection. Witnesses later said they heard laughter as the mall was torn down. Mark was a man who followed rules, but this time, breaking them cost him his life. David Carter loved his daughter more than anything. Lily was 8 years old, smart, and full of life. But everything changed when she got sick. The doctors couldn't figure out how to cure her. David watched helplessly as Lily grew weaker every day. He felt like he was failing her. One night, after another hospital visit, David stopped at a diner. He overheard 2 men talking about a strange road that could grant wishes. They called it the 11-mile road. David listened closely. He didn't believe in magic, but he was desperate. Later, David searched for the road online. The rules were simple. Drive at midnight. The road will appear if you truly need it. Don't stop until you reach the 11th mile. David didn't know if it was real, but he had to try. At midnight, he drove out into the countryside. His hands gripped the wheel tightly. He had Lily's photo on the dashboard. At first, the road looked normal, but by the 3rd mile, shadowy figures appeared in the woods. Their glowing eyes followed the car. David's stomach tightened, but he kept driving. By the 5th mile, the air inside the car turned freezing cold. His breath fogged up the windows. A low humming sound filled the air. David whispered, "This is for Lily," as he drove faster. At mile 7, the car radio turned on by itself. It played Lily's favorite lullaby. Tears filled David's eyes. This is a sign, he thought. I can't stop now. At the 9th mile, the car stalled. Shadowy figures emerged from the woods. Their faces were twisted and wrong, like something out of a nightmare. They pressed their hands against the windows, staring at David. He turned the key with shaking hands, praying the car would start. Finally, the engine roared to life, and he sped forward. When David reached the 11th mile, everything turned red. The road disappeared, and he felt like he was floating. Then everything went dark. David woke up in his driveway. In his hand was a small vial of medicine with Lily's name on it. He rushed to give it to her, and it worked. Lily got better. But something wasn't right. Mirrors in the house began to crack for no reason. Shadows moved when no one was there. Late at night, David heard Lily's lullaby playing softly, even when the radio was off. David got what he wished for, but the road didn't let him go. On January 15th, 2025, something strange happened across America. Every phone, TV, and computer turned on at the same time. The president's face appeared on the screen. He looked pale and scared. "This is an emergency," he said. "Her strange glowing beings have appeared around the world. Do not look at them. Do not listen to their singing. Stay inside and avoid mirrors and windows." People didn't know what to think. Some ignored the warning and paid the price. In Alabama, the Miller family saw the glowing beings in their backyard. They were curious, so they looked outside. The next morning, their neighbors found them dead. Their faces were frozen in fear, and their eyes were blackened. In Seattle, a news station accidentally showed footage of the beings during a live broadcast. Thousands of people who watched the show disappeared. Their homes were empty, and their screens only showed static. Sarah, a survivor from Detroit, said she heard the beings' song. "It was the most beautiful sound I've ever heard," she said. "But it made me want to follow it, to let it take me. I covered my ears just in time." The beings are still out there. Their song can pull you in. Their glowing faces make people freeze. Once you see them, it's too late. The president's warning keeps playing. If you see them, look away. If you hear them, cover your ears. This is not a drill. What would you do if these beings came to your town? These 3 stories show us one thing. Sometimes, rules are there to protect us. Would you follow the rules or risk it all? Let us know what you think. And remember, the scariest horrors are the ones we don't see coming. Until next time, stay safe and stay out of the shadows.